Kickoff for a year-long project that's going to.
I feel like we just did this.
It was done. She said that it was last done in 86 for 2020. I think it was.
Not exactly accurate. We did. Katie had a big ideas thing. Got people from all across the community. I mean, I facilitated 4 sessions with Scott Pedowitz, and this was 2016. 2015, 2016. It was supposed to be exactly this. Oh well. Hopefully yours goes better.
What were the?
No, we did.
Am I the only person who remembers this?
I know, I remember it.
Okay, all right. I'm not out of my mind over here. Yeah, this is water, I promise. But yeah. Yeah. I remember that. But that's great. Well, I'm sure she was there. I'm glad to hear that.
I'm sure she thinks of this as something different. We had to start with, we had postcards, and we were supposed to individually first write to ourselves from 2050 what we liked about Arlington. And then that was before the discussion. And apparently this is going to go on with postcards all over the county and collected at libraries and email and stuff.
That's
clever. Come back with her.
Was Bryna running it? Was she facilitating it?
No, Libby was doing it herself.
Really?
She was at the lectern. She sat down to lead the discussions. Then she went back to the lectern to call on tables. And it was the usual stuff that came up.
Okay.
Housing, environment, green space, the usual.
I'm glad to hear that Liz was there because we have some challenges in path forward, I'll tell you that. Big challenges.
What was the demographic of the?
They said that it was diverse. I wasn't convinced. But, well, maybe I don't. Maybe visually I just don't get it. But I didn't see a whole lot of diversity. But there was a range of ages. It wasn't a bunch of old people like me. A lot of middle-aged people, and they even had a couple of high school students there. So it was a broad.
Oh, that's good.
So it's diverse in some
Great.
Yeah, it was certainly not stark non-diverse, but it wasn't. When they said it was so diverse, I thought, really, is it really that diverse?
That's cool. How was the food?
No worries.
Actually, it was good. Amazon does good food. There was a whole discussion about how good the food was, and it was in-house.
There you go.
With all the money they have.
Yes.
Good job, everybody. Going out. Thank you. First up, approval of minutes. I always make them up, but did everyone have a chance to take a look at the minutes from last?
I did not. Did she actually say, because I went back on this again, that the reason they're doing this is because in the past, all of this had been done through the base budget with mixed benefits, and so they decided to do funding in a competitive way. And did she actually say? I know she came real close, but did she actually put it that blatantly that it's not us?
But I mean, that was a takeaway.
Yeah, that was the sense I got. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay, well, any other comments, corrections? I think that means we move to approve.
Move.
Yes.
Thank you.
In a second. Thank you. That means they're approved, correct? Someday.
All in favor?
Aye.
Do we usually do?
Yes.
Yes. I'm sorry, guys. It's
2 thumbs up.
something that doesn't stick in my head. Like, it's common sense, and for some reason, I can't get it right.
We got through it.
Yep.
All right. Next up, I think I'll turn it to you, Caitlin.
Sure. Yeah, so we, as you all know, we have our competitive notice of funding availability process that runs from July through the fall, and but there are a few other programs that are funded through federal funding that are not considered competitive in that process, and they're mostly Arlington County internal programs. And then there's another program that is actually also in the base budget that is funded through, that is sort of managed through our office. So what we like to do is have those administrators come in and talk about, how their programs are doing, what the participation looked like last year, kind of talk a little bit about what's going on this year, and then, any changes or, things to look out for in the future related to the program. So our first visitor tonight is Akiria Brown, who's our homeownership programs administrator in the housing division. She administers several homeownership programs, but the sort of largest one and the one that we talk about a lot is the Moderate Income Purchase Assistance Program, and that is funded through CDBG. So I'm going to turn it over to Akiria to talk a little bit about what's been going on there.
Thank you so much, Caitlin, and I am really happy to be here with you all this evening to share information about MyPAP, to just kind of give you the lay of the land. I am not sure of those of you that are familiar with the program, so I will provide just like a brief background of the program, and then we can just kind of take it from there.
I think Jennifer is actually doing it.
Oh, is she?
Yeah.
Okay, next slide. Okay, great. So we'll talk about the MyPAP program, and then I will give a brief update on the homeownership study that I'm ecstatic that Caitlin is here to fill in the gaps and what I've done on that. So next slide. The MyPAP program is the county's first-time homebuyer assistance program that was started in the early 80s. Primarily, it's throughout the years, it's relied heavily on CDBG. It's important to note that until 2017, the program was primarily run by AHC, who managed several other of the county homeownership programs, including MyPAP and our affordable dwelling units. So the county assumed control of the MyPAP program in 2017. And so with that said, MyPAP is here to assist first-time homebuyers that are of moderate income to be able to purchase in the county. Next slide. So MyPAP, it consists of a second or a silent trust. So a silent second trust, which basically accompanies a first trust that is assumed by a mortgage lender of the buyer's choice. So essentially, MyPAP can be up to 25% of the purchase price of a home in Arlington. The maximum loan amount of MyPAP is $112,500. The maximum purchase price is $500,000. Again, it's a silent second mortgage. This program currently has a shared appreciation model, which means that when the buyer refinances or sells the home, a portion of their appreciation must be shared with the county, and that then allows us to continue operating the program. So the criteria, the income criteria for MyPAP is primarily households, or it is at this moment, households that have income at or below 80% of the area median income, and that includes all sources. I am here, I can answer questions in between slides or at any moment. Okay. So for a household of one, at this moment, the 80% of AMI is 84.4, and that includes, again, all household income sources. And that is the gross household income. Next slide. Buyers must be first-time home buyers. These are just an overview of our criteria. They must be first-time home buyers. They, again, must have 80% or less of the AMI. We currently have a credit score minimum Their debt to income ratio cannot be more than 45%. Buyers must contribute 1% towards the purchase of their unit. And then we do have a homebuyer education component, which is really important because we know that homebuyer education for first-time homebuyers is a best practice. So homebuyer education is mandatory for all of the purchasers. Again, they must have a first trust approval and they must have a ratified contract in order to obtain MyPath.
I'm sorry, did you say what the
Sure.
DTI is?
Their debt to income ratio cannot be
Got it.
more than 45%. Next slide. Again, the maximum purchase price is $500,000. Of course, the units must be located in Arlington. Primary residency is a requirement until the MyPath loan is repaid. And these units must meet HUD basic habitability inspection criteria. Next slide. So currently, there are about 100, I'm sorry, that's really light.
Yeah.
There's a map under there somewhere. Sorry about that. I can see it on my screen, but for some reason it doesn't come up.
We can see the
I think it's just the light.
It's the,
But currently there are about 139 active loans in the MyPrep portfolio. So in prior years, in the 80s, 90s, some of the MyPath loans were amortized, so they had monthly payments associated with them. But as of now, in I want to say maybe 2005, somewhere around there, the loans went to a deferred model. So these loans are deferred. There are no monthly payments associated with the MyPath loan. So of course, it is a loan. It must be repaid upon refinance or resale, but there are no monthly payments associated with it. And that further assists these moderate income home buyers in being able to afford in the county because this loan does not have a monthly payment burden associated.
But because of increased costs, isn't there an increased pressure on the borrowers?
Increased costs, increased pressure in terms of?
Being able to live in the unit?
Well, yeah, certainly. I mean, there's always going to be that to some degree, but then as we look at the landscape of affordable units in the county, we know that not a lot of households at 80% of AMI are really able to live in these units unless they increase their income at some point in the near future, especially because condo fees are rising, right? And that does not necessarily have anything to do with whether or not their mortgage payment is fixed. And so we definitely see the situations where people have to increase their income over time in order to just keep pace of the condo fees and cost of maintenance and most of it.
Years ago, before there was real homebuyer education, many of the owners going into condominiums hadn't learned that there were maintenance and other costs that are outside of what you have here.
Right.
Is that still the case?
It is. I think what we are learning is the importance of that condominium education in conjunction with homebuyer education. So we do provide condominium 101 education.
Before closing?
They can take that before closing. It is not required. Homebuyer education is required. But the condominium education course is available before closing, but it's available whenever they're available on a rolling basis, essentially. But we do find that it is really critical for people to understand that, especially not coming from condominiums. You know, if you're really not coming from having those costs $500. That's typically what we're seeing, $500 a month average condo fees for our buyers. People are really not accustomed to that, and it really kind of, in a lot of ways, it takes some people out of the market altogether, right? Because that debt to income ratio is fixed, and those condo fees are on top of the mortgage payment on a monthly basis. So a lot of folks do have trouble identifying a unit that keeps them in that affordable range.
Challenge.
Yeah, it is.
Now, what this is scattered, I presume mostly in the south?
That's right, mostly in the south. We do have a small number of active loans in North Arlington neighborhoods, but again, there's an affordability factor there that really can't be overlooked.
What's the red versus
The
blue?
red dots, just for reference.
So I think the red dots were, those just had to, it didn't really have anything to do with my factors. I think,
They just like
I think they're metro stops.
I think they were the metro stations. You can, yeah, I know it looks really, really tiny, but those are metro stations.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Jennifer, just so you were aware, the all we can see is the dots on the screen. The map is showing up for some reason.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see like neighborhood names and everything.
Yeah.
That's really weird.
Yeah, no. Can you want to see?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Metro stations make sense.
Yeah, like, we're all.
It's like East Falls Church.
Yes.
Let's see if I can get it on here too.
Okay.
There's one in Dawson Terrace.
Like we're
Any of I don't know why that is.
Yeah, that's weird.
I think it's just that it's a really light colored map. But I will take a screenshot and I can send this around to everyone.
Okay.
And it will also be on the website.
Okay.
So you expect the
Yes.
income to increase, so it doesn't matter how much the income increases during the period of the loan. So they could turn around and make 200,000 a year and
They could.
you'd be fine.
There is no annual income test. So essentially they have to meet income criteria and eligibility criteria when they purchase, but beyond that, there are no other eligibility criteria associated with it.
just pay.
Well, pay their first
They
trust
have to
mortgage.
pay them monthly.
Right, they have to pay their first trust mortgage. They don't have to pay us because we don't have any payments associated with our loan, which is completely.
Yeah. So the payments are totally deferred. You wouldn't receive payment until they sold the property or they refinance.
Correct.
Why would anybody ever refinance?
Oh, 2.3%, which is what we saw a couple years ago.
Yeah. When are we going to see that again?
Well, right, I mean, so they're incentivized to refinance because they can pay whatever the appreciation is to us at that particular time and be done with us, rather than delaying it and of course that appreciation growing over time and our portion being larger. So they're certainly incentivized to refinance.
Oh, so interest is accruing on the loan but it's just not being paid.
No interest it's a 0% interest loan.
Wow.
There's no interest, no payments, and it can be up to $112,000. That's literally second to the highest in the country, like second, third, really. It's really, but again, Arlington is a very high cost market, so it's necessary.
The history is that the buyers stay.
Yes,
That's key.
I understand.
And that's wonderful.
We do get payoffs every year, but again, that's what we want, right? We want people to be able to pay us off, be done with us, and keep their home. They can then rent out their home if they decide. They can't do that when they owe us. When they owe us, it is their primary residence. And that is a,
So part of this is to help them purchase, but it's also incentivizing them to stay in the county.
absolutely,
That's important.
right. Next slide.
I've personally
Oh, yes.
known several people who have gone through this type of thing
Mm-hmm.
and continued their professional growth.
Oh, yeah.
People who came here with nothing. So my impression is this is just such a wonderful thing.
Yeah. It's really ideal for people that are really just trying to get their feet in the door, in the homeownership door. Because of the housing stock, we know that the most affordable housing inventory in the county is going to be a condo. And for some people, it's just a mental hurdle that they're just unable to get over. Often when people think of home ownership, that dream is maybe a townhome, but certainly a single family home. And even if you kind of think of it as, possibly your next step housing, it is difficult for some people to take that leap into a condo, into that, that communal environment, coming from an apartment. But I think for those that are able to take advantage of it, it's ideal because there are no payments associated with it, and it increases their buying power. Whereas, they didn't have this, it would be significantly more difficult to purchase something in the county. So the buyers only have to come to the table with 1%. And that is also helpful, especially in high cost rent markets, where they're paying a lot for rent, really not able to save a whole lot, but do have the earnings in order to handle a mortgage. So just having to be able to come to the table with 1% and decent credit.
Are these mostly families?
No,
What?
no,
No, mostly singles.
mostly singles. Singles and two-person households. Because again, going to the inventory that, 1 and 2 bedroom units are difficult for families to just kind of see themselves in at $500,000.
So I assume also they're relatively young.
You're right. Yeah, so typically we're looking at folks that are around 28, 30. Again, their first house. They have to be first-time home buyers for this program. Some newly out of college. We've seen a lot of that occurring in the last fiscal year. 24-year-olds, 25-year-olds that are comfortable living in a small 1-bedroom unit with a very small kitchen, and their needs are just different. So definitely younger and smaller household sizes.
It seems a challenge if you're making that as a single, making less than that 80,000, 24,
Right.
and you've been able to out of that save the 1% without any gifts or anything.
Well, the 1%, you're thinking, so, this is what we have here, this is the expended. So if we go to the next slide, slide 10. So the average purchase price for MyPap is about $330,000, right? So they are coming up with $3,300. That can easily be a stimulus check plus a couple paychecks, a tax return plus a couple paychecks. So yeah, it's not easy, but it definitely is doable. So we see about the average income for households that are using MyPath are around 79,000, somewhere around there. Yeah, 79, maybe to about 85. So yeah, it really just depends on their debt. Of course, when we see folks that have significant student loans, it's a major challenge, right? Because you just can't get around that. And that was, it was doable when those student loans were in forbearance, but now that they're no longer in forbearance, they are part of that debt to income ratio. And even when they're not accounted for 100%, there is a percentage that's accounted for. And for some households, it can be a make or break kind of situation.
Now, that last comment implied that many of them have education,
Yes.
college.
Yes. I would say about 70% of the households that we're serving are college educated, at least a bachelor's.
It feels like it's kind of a narrow
Yes.
group, right? Because it's people with the education to have the earning potential,
Right.
but not so bogged down by student loans that they can't, that they have too much debt that they can't. And so it's kind of a,
Yeah, it's definitely, we're threading a needle, right? So you can't have the student loan debt and a car. It's really one or the other, when you're thinking about that ongoing car debt. But then we try to look at the totality of the household income. So you have more than one car, more than one student loan. Because we're asking folks to meet income criteria. So you can't make but a certain amount of money when you apply. But you have to make enough for your first trust lender to say you're a good gamble.
Then you can earn more.
Right.
Well,
But
you have
we
to
don't
make
see
enough
wages even keeping pace in a lot of,
Yeah.
you
have to make enough to not only be a candidate for a mortgage, but to be able to cover your mortgage payment, even with the 112,000 knockoff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You end up working with certain lenders as the first trust, or is it just all over?
Well, we do require that the lenders be Virginia Housing approved lenders, but that's hundreds of lenders, right? So, but beyond that, we don't have other criteria. Virginia Housing they do verification checks, and we just kind of rely on that as the entree or the entrance. So we try not to have too many barriers to lenders. We just want them to be approved by Virginia Housing. And so, yes, there are several lenders that really hit the pavement with this program, but that's often because some lenders are more apt to working with folks that are at that income level. In a room full of lenders, you may or may not get 4 that are working with buyers on a regular basis that have 80% or less income. And typically when I am in a crowd full of lenders and I poll them, not a lot of them are working with households that earn incomes below $100,000. So it's not that they don't necessarily want to be a part of the program, it's just not their clientele. But we work really hard to get the word out about these programs. We're constantly doing forums with Virginia Housing, with the Northern Virginia Association of Realtors, really just trying to ensure that real estate professionals are aware of this program and the usability of it. So,
Do people come to you first? I'm trying to think chicken or the egg. So when they go to the first lender, they say that they can be part of this program. So when the lender calculates things, they can calculate in the money from you.
yes. So when they come to us, they have to have that first trust approval. And typically in their estimate, so a lender will give them a loan estimate. In that loan estimate, even if it's not the case when we first receive it, we send it back to the lender and we say, account for my PAP in this loan, and then send us back the the loan estimate, because we want to see that number, we want the buyer to be able to see that number, and we want the lender to know, to understand that this is available to the buyer and what the parameters are.
But it wouldn't be in the initial estimate.
Possibly not.
So we think that would make a decision
It
on the
does.
first trust, whether or not your piece would be in there.
Well, it does make a difference though, because there are situations where someone would get a first trust approval, and then it gets to us, and then they realize, no, they're actually eligible to be able to purchase more home with MyPap. And so now that first trust approval can be a little bit more flexible, because knowing that MyPap is available. And so MyPap is there to assist with the down payment and the closing costs associated with the purchase. So I think, so I mentioned that the average purchase price throughout the last few years for MyPap has been about $330,000. Even from 22 to current, it's been about $330,000. And that has a lot to do with condo fees, right? Because condo fees are on top of what you would pay for your mortgage. So at that 80% of AMI, the numbers are the numbers. We do get households that are able to afford significantly more. Most of the time, it's because those households have significantly more savings and significantly less debt. Right? It's just the nature of the beast.
So if the average price is kind of steady, but obviously housing costs everywhere are going up, does that mean the supply of what they can buy with this program, is it a problem? Or are folks able to find units that work for them?
Well, one thing that we will see, if we go back to slide 9, we can go back to slide 9 and we can see that that we had more households purchased in FY23 than we've had in a very, very long time, right? So I'm sorry. Now, it doesn't mean that the inventory is copious, that it's available, but it does mean that people were willing to make the sacrifice, and those interest rates were made it accessible at that time. The county does also offer a 1% interest rate reduction program, and we do that in conjunction with Virginia Housing. And that allows us to basically buy down the rate 1%, so that when those rates were 3%, we had actually some folks that were able to get a rate of 2.3%. I mean, you know, right? So it's not common, but when it happens, it's pretty wonderful to see. So I say that to say, yes, the inventory is always going to be a challenge. But when you have buyers that are nimble, they are more willing to take that leap. And that's where that low debt and, you know, relatively high income or savings kind of comes in, at least among these buyers. So we've served about 40 households from FY18 to current day. Where are we? Okay, so the average MyPap loan by fiscal year, so as you can see this kind of broken down here, the average MyPap loan is about $77,000. Currently, and then FY22 to currently, it was slightly higher than that. It's about $80,000. So in FY20 and FY23, those were outliers. Again, households that had more buying power because of their savings. It really goes a long way. And less debt, buying a small home, We had a couple folks actually purchase their home from their landlord. So having a little bit more negotiation room, as well as the county also has affordable dwelling units. And so the county has 62 affordable dwelling units currently in our portfolio. And these are units that we get through this special exception process when a developer wants to develop condos and they want additional density. They can either give us money for affordable housing, AHIF, or they can give us units. Currently, the county has about 62 of these affordable dwelling units in our portfolio. These units are restricted in their resale value, meaning that they must be sold and resold to households that meet income criteria, and therefore they must be sold and resold at affordable prices because they have to be sold to households that meet income criteria. So in some years that can also act as an outlier because those units are relatively less expensive than what is on the market. We do not get a lot of resales for those units. Folks typically buy them and they stay in those units.
Does the same hold true that you can't income out of them? Like you can your income continue to go up?
Yes.
You're still eligible to own that.
That is right. Yep. We are not in the business of taking people's homes. I don't even think we could do that. You know, they own them. This is not a rental where we can say you have to move out, right? So yes, there is no income criteria once you move and once you close on the home. The transaction is exactly as a transaction is for any traditional buyer. It's just that this ends up being a second loan. But our deed is in land records. Our covenants are recorded in land records and everything else. So where are we? Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. So just kind of looking at the breakdown of race and ethnicity among MyPAP borrowers, this is what we're seeing. About 55% white households, 23% Black, and about 20% Hispanic households. We continue to work with partners to try to get the word out, but homebuyer education is really, really important across the board. And so we continue to really try to bolster our homebuyer education efforts to ensure that we can kind of broaden the spectrum of households that are able to utilize this program. And even if they're not able to utilize this program or don't want to, we want to empower them with homebuyer education so that they can purchase elsewhere if they decide, or some place down the line.
Do you have to live in the county already to join this program?
You do not. But about 80% of the purchasers that we serve already live in the county.
Otherwise, they may not have heard of it.
Correct. And that is changing a bit, you know. So our program is listed on several nationally based websites. So Fannie Mae is coming out with one now, where it's called DPA One. It's going to be a national portal. It's not open to purchasers yet, but it's open to lenders. It just went live in Virginia last month. So purchasers across the country will be able to see that Arlington County has this program in the Fannie's their portal for down payment assistance. And that may change some of the landscape of the folks that are applying for the program, but that remains to be seen. Okay, really quickly, 65% of the households that we're serving are female head of households. 50% are one-person households. 85% are existing Arlington residents, 90% are unmarried, which is interesting. 60% have second jobs. 35% include children. And so when we are looking at the choices of jobs, administrative support, education, health and emergency services are really the top of the careers that we see. And really quickly, for those that decided not to purchase with MyPAP, the top reason is because the monthly cost and the size of the desired unit type. And this is directly related to condo fees and condos. Folks really having a difficult time making that mental leap, but also that financial leap with those condo fees having to go be paid on top of the monthly mortgage. So I think, yeah, so we're gonna wrap this up a little bit. And so there's a lot that we've learned over the last few years in terms of our homeownership portfolio. And we recently embarked on a homeownership study, just studying the existing programs that we currently offer for the county. And we wanted to engage the public in these conversations to determine how we can make our programs more efficient and more effective, look at them through an equity lens and ensure that the folks that needed those resources are able to access these resources. And so we are in the last phase of this homeownership study, and I'm sure that Caitlin will at some point have us to come and speak to this group again about the recommendations for improvements to our existing programs that we will be undertaking in the near future. And so we are really looking forward to that and looking forward to just furthering our outreach, furthering just ensuring that we are looking at our developed vision and goals for these homeownership programs and partnering with lenders, with the community to ensure that folks can access it. So I'm here to answer any additional questions.
One last question, you may have
Sure.
mentioned this, but how many people have failed? So they've gotten their MyPAP loan, and then a couple of years later, they can't afford things and they end up being
Foreclosed on?
foreclosed.
We don't see foreclosures. No. We have not had any, and I think I appreciate you bringing that up because we don't really even keep that number because it's
zero.
not a number. But I do think it is helpful to just kind of, have that front and center because that's not really something that we've contended with over the past several years.
It's amazing. You'd expect some.
That's a great point. Thank you for mentioning that. I will add that.
It speaks well for the program,
I think so, yeah.
or at least the selection.
Well, I think people want to stay here, right? And some are taking second jobs and they're doing whatever they can. But of course, they don't have any restriction on the income that they can earn either. So when you buy at an affordable level, then you have a little bit more financial latitude for a period of time. Now, we have gotten households come to us that needed assistance with their mortgage. And luckily, during that period of time, we were able to tap into federal funds that was made available because of COVID. But we haven't seen that on a regular basis. But we are currently in the last phase of the homeownership study where we will be bringing, we'll be publishing third-party recommendations for our programs, and that would possibly imply some changes to our existing programs.
Thank you for joining us, Akira.
Thank you all for
And
having me.
Great questions,
Thank
yeah.
you so much.
Very
Yeah.
Well,
Well done.
Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
Yes. And I guess we will move on next to Jorge, who's our Housing Outreach Program Coordinator.
Good job.
You want to, okay.
Onto the hot seat.
Hot seat and, yeah, my 10 minutes of fame. Well, real estate is a difficult subject, I'm telling you. I love real estate. I still have my real estate license since 1992. You know, it's been a long time. Well, I know that I'm an old-fashioned guy. I don't have my little laptop here. I do have it, but I don't want to use it, please.
Drive, or do you
No,
want me
go
to?
ahead.
I will, okay.
Let's play some cards here. Well, my name is Jorge Lora. I'm the Housing Outreach Program Coordinator for the designated low and moderate income areas in Arlington County. And wherever I extended that, wherever we have committed affordable units and marks. Marks are apartment complexes where they are maintained at affordable rental levels without the intervention of the county. Now, this program also supports the Affordable Housing Master Plan and the Consolidated Plan to promote vibrant and sustainable neighborhoods. So today, thank you for the opportunity over there. You have my goals, my objectives, and all of that. But today, I want to share with you my activities that I have in FY23. That's what you have in right now. What I'm doing right now in FY24, and what we plan to do in FY25. You know. So next slide, please, David.
Yeah.
Thank you. So what you're looking at is FY23. We accomplished, when I came last year, around the same time, we were in the middle of FY23. So now here I can report the whole thing for FY23. We referred 413 clients to appropriate county agencies. We did 27 outreach hours to community centers, which include talking to apartment complexes. We provided also support to the housing division staff when there is some other presentations or translations sometime. And I translated and I programmed some of these brochures that I usually try not to recreate the wheel. There are brochures that are published from different organizations and public and federal, and then I just take it and I just disseminated that information. In the seminars on FY23, we organized 36 education seminars attended by 441 residents. Also in October of last 2022, we did the Living Arlington Information Fair. That was mainly for first-time home buyers and tenants. And then in April of last year, we did the Living Arlington Information again, but that was for homeowners and first-time home buyers. We also had some workshops for tenants, but we tried to mix it. I also provided outreach at 8 other community events organized by Civic Association, Arlington Public Schools, CPSD partners. As a result, we did outreach to 358 residents. They receive important information on housing rentals, home maintenance, home buying, and that's something that I preach around, you know, especially when I go into apartment complexes and somebody tell me that they've been living for 10 years, it's better time for you to buy. You know, it's about time. So that's what happened. And I don't have the time today to tell you all the stories of people that have embraced me after 3 years. You were the one who told me to buy, and then there you are. I not even remember who that person is. Also, we coordinated 2 successful neighborhood cleanups in Green Valley and Arlington Mill. A total of 480 residents participated in the event, with a total of 24 tons of trash that was removed. The next slide, please. And because pictures tell you more words. Here we are, some on the upper right-hand side, you will see the neighborhood cleanup. On the bottom right side, you will see the tenant education workshops. I'm really happy when I talk to all these people getting trained in maintenance concern, what to deal with rodents, with roaches, bedbugs, about all of these different topics. This month, usually for me, is about safety prevention and fire prevention a little bit. Usually in wintertime, more of the tenants or residents are inside their homes, so that's when that created that problem. On the middle, you will see other engagements that we went through. And last fiscal year, on FY23, my program received a award from a nonprofit that I was able to bring here to the county. It's called the Center for Assistance with Families. They have other offices in Massachusetts. They have it in Maryland, they have it in DC. Now they open in Woodbridge, and now they are here in Arlington. So I'm trying everybody to get more connected to them so they can help more residents here in Arlington County. And they give me an award because they thought that we are doing a good job together. So next slide, please, Kaylee. So that brings us to FY24, which is going on right now. As last year, here we are, 6 months into the road already. We have organized 13 education seminars attended by 180 residents. We have provided 13 hours of outreach to community centers. We have talked to 17 apartment managers and 2 housing services providers. We have organized with AstraCore. That's another nonprofit that I'm going to start working with them doing the home maintenance workshop. We did it at the Career Center. I was expecting 80 people. We got 50, but it was fine. We did workshops about plumbing, electrical, saving energy, and repair drywall. So we're planning to do it again with these people. Now, participated in events like the homeownership study, the Green Valley Festival, the annual community festival at Tidal Hills Park. That's something that was brought back. We used to do that every year before the pandemic, and then they started doing that. It's a well recognized event at Tidal Hills and the Arlington Mill. And also we participate in the LULAC conference. And the main thing that I believe in FY24 was the distribution of committed affordable units information package. On my side, it was a combined together from my office, together with a nonprofit. I think it was Saul Reyes with Pugara. We were assigned to take this. I don't know if you haven't seen it. It was a whole package. We have all that information for tenants with new rodent brochures. They have a postcard. They have all of this information, and I was able to disseminate that news to 11 apartment complexes. We reached 760 residents. So I believe that was a good way to outreach to the tenants, especially when they don't want to come to us. The tenant, we have to go over there and look for them. In the next 6 months, I'm planning to organize about 70 to 20 education seminars and provide maybe 12 outreach hours to community centers. Events that we're going to be participating on this month, on February, we're going to be at the Green Valley Day. That's going to be on a Saturday, two weeks from now. We're going to be at the Virginia Hospital Employee and Resources Day with Sotalis Barrios, I believe will be on the 22nd. That will be in Churlington. They have a Virginia Hospital. They have a new office in Churlington, in the Churlington area, so I like to go over there. We're going to participate in the Langston Boulevard Earth Day. That's going to be in April. And on March, I'm going to be at the Nova Housing Expo. I'm going to be doing a workshop about rental assistance in Arlington County. I'm planning to reach talk with 10 apartment managers, coordinate the live. That's what is going on right now. The Live in Arlington Information Fair is going to be in April 27 and this year. I'm working on that right now. And also we're going to coordinate 2 neighborhood cleanups in Green Valley and Arlington Mill. I already have the date secure with the Department of Environmental Services. My good friend Cheney Curly Jack, she is the managing over there, director, and we always go a good time. We talk until we secure, because if we wait a little bit, by February or March, maybe they will be doing another activities, and then they cannot provide that activity that is the people that reside on those locations, they are looked after. You should see the day before the cleanup. They usually walk by. It's like the cleanup is on a Saturday, but on a Friday, people walk by and take what they want. I mean, because sometimes people throw away good doors. I mean, it's windows. The people that collect metal, I have to stop them. I usually go the day before and the day of the cleanup earlier. I have to stop them because I said, leave some metal for the county, you know, because the county has to make a little bit of money. You know, I take the opportunity that day to distribute brochures, talk to the homeowners on these locations. You know, for example, Arlington Mill every year is about their chimneys. They have a metal chimneys. I tell them if they rust, what's going to happen. You can have a backdraft. You can get killed by carbon monoxide in winter if you don't fix it. Summertime is a good time. Things like this. So dust cleanup, I believe, is a good opportunity to exchange that ideas with the residents. So next slide, please, Kaylee. So that brings me to FY25. I mean, and that won't be too long ago. It's going to start in July of this year. I'm planning to do the home maintenance workshop on the fall again. The Live in Arlington Information Fair, Housing Fair in April of 2025. And then landlord workshops, homeowner workshops, apartments outreach. Probably if you are not familiar with the apartments outreach, if you can see on the flyer that I gave you here on the back, that was for FY23. Every month I stop by and talk to at least 2 apartment managers. And I come and announce it. I don't know if you have go to, for example, Sedona apartment. That's here in the Roslyn area. If you walk into that lobby, you think that you're going into a 4-star hotel. It's beautiful. I think we only have like 10 or 15 units there. They have a concierge there. So my main thing is go over there and tell the concierge, I'm looking for affordable units. You know, sure, I go with my, and sometimes they say, what is that? So, then I have to educate him. I don't put the finger on him to the manager, but then I ask for the manager, and then usually managers give me 5 minutes. That's all I need. So I got my little package. I talk to them about fair housing. I talk to them about integrated pest management control, what is happening. I pause a little bit. Do you have any problem with roaches? If they hesitate, that means they have it. I tell them the roaches, they hesitate to answer, that means they have a problem. You know, when they don't have a problem, oh no, we don't have it. They think twice. So I say, okay, well, this is what happened. Roaches are worse than bed bugs, you know. And recently it's more about rodents and rats and all of that, you know, and they end up with mold issues or some other information that is like in my next package in the next couple months. I'm going to be including something about lead-based paint information, and also about accessibility and all of that. I have a brochure from, this is the Virginia Housing. If somebody want an accessible modification, they can get up to, I believe it's $8,000, you know. And some of the managers that they've done it before, they say, George, but we cannot do it. I say, but you have to try. You have to do it. At least you did it. Otherwise, you know, the big, you know, who was before lead-based paint, mold issues, and asbestos, big lawyers. So behind accessibility, it could be, and you can be in hot water. So it's a good thing that I do with the managers, and I hope I continue to do that. So that is for me, yeah, for your questions.
Questions for Jorge?
I do, for those tenants in affordable dwelling units that are, as you mentioned, that are scattered among market rate buildings, particularly here in North Arlington,
Yeah.
where there's just a couple here and there, and you mentioned that the one building you went to and spoke to the landlord. Are you able to communicate on a regular basis with those tenants who are scattered about, either through email or anything like that? Do you have a list of all the tenants in all of these scattered little ADUs?
Well, not a list of the tenants, but usually what I do is I drive by this, especially in the areas where I am, that is Green Valley, Arlington Mill, and Buckingham. There are apartment complexes that doesn't belong to the CAF group. So what I do is I park the car, I walk into these. If I go and talk to the manager, for example, I went recently to Fillmore Apartments. I don't know if you're familiar with Fillmore. That's the next one to Bargrove. Is one of the biggest that we have in Arlington County. And I was going to talk to the manager, and I didn't know the manager. I said, I need to talk to the manager. And who wants the manager? The guy up front said, Jorge Laura. And the manager was listening. She come out and she said, Jorge, I knew him for a long time ago. So some of the managers that are even into these apartments, they were before maybe assistant managers in another apartment. And it's unbelievable when I go to these apartments. So, and I asked them, listen, I'm going to walk into your units and sometime into your, around your buildings. If I see a tenant sometimes, I stop and I say, how's everything going here? The main concern for me is maintain these strategic areas that we were called before, now is dedicated areas, low and moderate income areas like Buckingham and Arlington Mill in a good shape. And in these apartment complexes, the first line of defense, I believe, the people who do the cleaning. Because the people who do the cleaning, they know what's going on. So when I park the car and I see them walking around, they are the first person that I interview. How's everything going? They are the one who tell me, oh, there is a lot of vagrants at night and they leave a lot of beer and stuff. And they are the one who tell me, and then I go and talk to the manager. So it's a nice job that I really like this approach to talking to the residents.
Well, thank you, Jorge, for joining us.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, nice evening.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Really important service that he provides to.
Thank you.
All right, so our last speaker for tonight is Saul Reyes with Bugada. And I believe, Saul, you were going to try to share your screen. Oh, you got it. Perfect.
That's right.
So Saul is here to talk about the Promotora program.
Great. You can see my screen, right?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. That's all I need. Let me see if I can minimize what I have here in front, and I'll be with you. All right. So if I try to change slide, let's see. You're able to see that, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Great. I'm not sure if my camera's on, but okay. I'm going to go ahead and get started. So, well, good evening, commissioners. It's good to be here again, and thank you for allowing me some time to join you tonight. My name is Saul Reyes. I'm with Bugada Tenants Association, and I'm here to present on Bugada's Promotora program. I'm going to start with a brief background for if we have any new commissioners. So I'll give you a brief background on the program and then give you an overview of the accomplishments over the last year. And so let's see. Okay, change slide. Okay. So what is the Promotora program? The Promotora program is a neighborhood-based system of care that seeks to provide the low-income immigrant households with a continuum of education and advocacy that are accessible and culturally competent, with the goal to engage community members to develop and strengthen support networks for isolated Arlington residents, to improve access to services and civic engagement opportunities. And so the Promotora program connects the residents and neighbors, informal networks, and connects them with the formal mainstream networks. So the need for the Promotora program. Many immigrant households are not familiar with and often are distrustful of the formal delivery systems. And so while there are immigrants who lived in Arlington for a longer time and may have approached formal services, but believe that they were not served because of language, cultural, or legal barriers. And so consequently, these residents may face unemployment, lack of decent and affordable housing, decreased opportunities, and or participation in mainstream society. So the program encourages civic engagement. Civic participation is key to the ability of residents to learn about policies that affect their lives. And it is important that the immigrant community take part in the decisions that affect their future in Arlington. And also, if Arlington is to be successful in addressing the needs, preserving affordable housing affordability, addressing growth, low-income renters, including many immigrants, need to be actively engaged in ensuring that the community needs are met. And so one key thing about this program is that through outreach, we meet people where they are, where they live, where they play, or where they shop. I mentioned the Promotora is a network of residents. And Bugata's role is to be an educator, but also serve as a connector to a network of services and also an outreach mechanism to engage residents. And Bugata accomplishes this using neighborhood leaders as navigators and connectors, who we call promotoras. The promotoras are community members who Bugata trains in community organizing, advocacy, and knowledge about resources and services available in the community. And so the promotoras are effective disseminators of information, helping bridge that formal systems in the communities where they live. So our goals and objectives are here on the screen. You can see that's to identify barriers faced by Latinos and other immigrants in accessing county and partner services, to develop neighborhood navigators to reach isolated residents and a strategy for improving community engagement, and also to expand the outreach and social networks to educate and empower residents and connect to county and community service providers. So the impacts. Residents gain access to services, programs that provide stability and improve quality of life, shared of learned experiences with others in their community and neighbors, and civic engagement is participation in workshops, events, forums, and testimony at public hearings with the commissions, such as the 10 Atlanta Commission, Housing Commission, or county board meetings, and residents learn to advocate for themselves and others in the community. The targets. In outreach, historically, we've set our own target to get to 300 individuals or households through the delivery of community liaison services, also to participate and host workshops and events related to issues relevant to the community, and to measure impact on households who receive one-on-one assistance. How we measure that success is through residents gaining access to services and programs that impact their lives. Also themselves sharing their learned experiences with others in their community, neighbors, or friends and relatives. Also increase in levels of learning, self-confidence, engagement, and advocating for themselves. And also through civic engagement, participation in workshops, presentations at forums, or testimony at public hearings, as I mentioned before. Now on the screen, you see some of the accomplishments in FY23 and year to date. So all included in there. Residents gaining access to services that impacted their life. We are at 426 individuals or households that we've assisted. And you also see here the residents gain access to services and programs as listed here on the screen that impacted their lives. Such as, residents secured access to heating subsidies, food assistance. Many tenants were able to stay in their housing and learned about to access services, learned to apply and fill out forms, or we provided that direct assistance to help them for those who didn't have or aren't able to fill out forms on their own due to challenges. Or we also help them negotiate with landlords or other government officials. Many of the new clients came by the way of referrals by other residents who received services from Bugata or attended a Bugata workshop. And this measures of, the impact of shared experiences in the community and neighborhood. We also plan to supervise workshops, as you see here, on housing programs, debt collections and scams, eviction prevention, mental health, financial literacy, leasing, knowing, tenant living and pest control, who Jorge Laura, who was the previous presenter, we partner with him. He comes and does workshops for our residents as well, on tenant rights or how to deal with pest control and such topics. Let's see. Also in this year, actually last year in 2023, in addition to the work that we do through this program, we also worked in collaboration with the county and conducted a resident experience survey for CAF residents. CAF is for residents living in affordable housing, and collected a total of 514 responses. In addition to that, as Jorge mentioned earlier, we, in partnership with the county, with the housing division, we distributed materials, information packets for residents living in affordable housing, and that was a total of over 9,000 units. Here in this screen, you can see some areas of assistance that we provide for instance. I'm gonna read all of them, but you can see that there are areas of public assistance, filling out SNAP applications. The Housing Choice Voucher also opened up. We provide information on that. In some residents, we needed assistance. Housing grants information, information about connecting to food resources such as AFAC, who's a partner, and we can make direct referrals for them as well. Also answering questions about health, connecting people to health insurance, mental health. We've done workshops on that as well, and providing information on resources for that. That is a big issue going on in our community, specifically now coming out of the pandemic. So also information about immigration, employment, issues related to crime and police. Mentioned earlier, we do workshops about debt and also scams. As you can see there in parentheses in scams, under scams, we put IRS, Social Security, utilities, friends or families in needs, because those are common scams that unfortunately our community falls for those. It's like they receive calls saying, hey, I have your friend here or a family member who's in need and you need to send us some money. So we try to educate residents that, these things are out there, and to also verify. So if they tell them, what, your relative is here and it's sick, or, it's arrested and you need to send some money for bail, is to make sure and call a relative or that relative directly if it's someone that they're claiming that is sick or is in the hospital. So it's those may seem little things, but it's very important for our community not to fall for those scams. I mentioned earlier ASAC, we do direct referrals, and then there's also education about how to become citizens and making those referrals and providing information for that. Information about the school system. We have many new residents coming into Arlington. That's always happening. New immigrants coming in. And there's always a need for that information, how to register these kids for schools and how to get involved in school as well as preparing taxes. Eventually you get a job, you need information on how to file your taxes. So for future plans for 2025, we want to continue doing the work that we have been doing, as I've mentioned earlier. We wanted to continue expanding our outreach in the social network to educate and empower our underengaged residents, and to continue identifying new barriers that our Latino community or immigrant community faces in accessing county or partner services. And we also want to continue collaborating to develop and implement strategies for reducing them through our partnerships and communicating with our county partners and nonprofits as well. Also going along with that is, work with our established partnership with Arlington nonprofits to provide educational workshops and emergency assistance to residents, and also to connect residents with programs to help mitigate the impact of inflation and on our vulnerable households, and help bring stability and prevent evictions, displacements, and homelessness. So hopefully I took a lot less time this time around making the presentation. So that concludes it. So if there are any questions here, so that ends the presentation. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay, I'm back on the screen, I think.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, okay, great. So thank you so much for having me tonight and allowing me this time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Sal. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you.
All right. Well, that concludes the presentations about the non-competitive programs funded through the Community Development Fund. If there are, does anyone have any additional questions or?
Well, just, and you answered this last year and I don't remember. How is it decided that they go into the non-competitive fund category? Not that I have a problem with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just, I think I don't really have a great answer for that. I think a lot of it is just kind of longevity of some of the programs, especially the county-funded internal programs. I mean, they've just, it's hard to make a sort of county program compete in a competitive process.
So I understand the MyPap, and I understand Jorge's program.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Saul is still on, whatever. I don't understand why that one is.
Not competitive.
Yeah, because it would also seem to me that that would be a better program for this new NOFA process that is now all about equity and whatever else. I was late, per usual, the last meeting, but it would seem to me that this program would be a better fit for that funding. I don't understand why it's here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily, I wasn't around to sort of
I probably wasn't
give an
either.
answer
Yeah.
on the why, but I think they're providing a service that is very specific to a specific neighborhood. But yeah,
Isn't
I
that the
mean,
goal of this new?
perhaps. But it's one of those programs that it's it's in the base budget, and so it just is there every year. So
It would seem to me that would be with this new funding source and the new process. Well, that everything should have a good hard look. It should go both ways.
Yeah.
So if there are programs that are here that are better fits there, maybe they should move over there, and rather than all new programs going there, maybe some existing programs would be better suited. Because like that MyPat program is phenomenal. It's changing lives. It's helping solve a real problem that is well documented in the county. We should be putting one person's opinion. There should be more resources put against that program.
Competition breeds better products.
I'm not debating the capability and the impact, but if it's been non-competitive for so long,
yeah.
to Nick's point, I mean, just one person's view.
So the 4 programs, I know we didn't hear from one today.
Yeah.
Like, how stable is that under this funding source? Like, how would it change? How would that mix of 4 programs change? Would one drop? Would a new one come about? How would we?
If there was a cut in funding, or is that what your question is, or?
I guess I just mean are we looking at these 4 programs kind of in perpetuity, or like how might that change?
Yeah, I mean, as far as how it would change, I think there's, as far as the county programs, so I'll give you an example. So the Arlington Employment Center, we've supported their training program for many years, and it's kind of shifted based on the needs that they're seeing over at the Employment Center. So for a long time, they were focusing on computer training, just getting people the basic computer job skills that they need, and they were doing some individualized training. It's kind of shifted into a certification program. I don't know if you'll recall from last year. So it kind of the program type fluctuates based on what they're seeing, and it allows them to be kind of nimble in how they offer their services. As far as the funding amount, for Arlington Employment Center, it's more of a discussion, sort of what are you seeing as the need, and what's the program going to look like next year, and how are you seeing costs fluctuate, and then that's kind of built into the base budget. That program does count against the public service cap, so we have to be kind of careful about making room for that when we're doing the budget puzzle after our review period. But MyPAP does it. So that's the kind of nice thing about MyPAP is that we can, depending on what Akira is seeing in the market, if there's a lot of, there's a big application list or a sort of backlog that, she's seeing as, we think we might have X number of loans next year. We can allocate more money to that program if needed, and it doesn't count against the public service cap. So as far as the Promotora program, that's a base number. I believe maybe a couple years we had allocated some COVID funding to do some increased outreach, and that was related to COVID. That was one-time funding.
But it seems to me, going back to Tim's point of view, it doesn't matter what we think. You're always going to provide these groups the X amount of money. So whether what I'm not understanding is it has no relevance in our commission.
Well, I think it does just in the sense that, we want to make sure that we're being transparent about how the funds are being spent. And so, this body kind of is the main way to keep, some level of oversight over what's happening with the federal funds. So that's why I think it's important for them to come each year to kind of talk about.
No, and I think that's great, but going back to Tim's overall, I don't want to sound blunt, but who cares?
The transparency is appreciated.
Well, and it's important because if we see a program
we can't debate and say, hey, staff, cut half of what you're giving them.
But we could say we've got problems with this and look into this because this seems to be wrong. It's not right, and sort of raise a ruckus.
Right, that's
but not say no, but raise a ruckus.
And we need to know about, say, the Promotora program, because if another program comes in through the competitive application that seems redundant, we might want to think through that and take that into account. So it's worth knowing that this is happening, whether we.
It's interesting. I just thought. Yeah. And also, I just wanted to see where we fit in. As we are part of this beloved Arlington County structure of funds.
That's a never evolving question. Yeah.
Okay, so any other questions about those?
Approved.
Well,
Yeah, approved.
I can give a quick update from my end. I and Caitlin was part of this. We had a meeting with Maureen Coffey, who is the new board member and our committee liaison. So it was nice to get to know her and talk to her. She's excited to work with us to the extent that we would like her to, was kind of what I took away.
Will you be inviting her to one of our sessions?
Yeah, you want?
Yeah.
I think that would be a good idea for the whole members.
Yeah. Yeah, so we talked about the typical things, right? We talked about recruiting membership and kind of trying to get some folks on board and kind of some of the challenges around that. So she's, like Takis was, committed to helping us to the extent she can, identify folks to bring on board. We talked about kind of the common things we always talk about related to the review process and the funding everybody at their highest amount versus spreading it a little thinner to fund more people and those kinds of decisions. I did bring up the information we learned at our last meeting related to the equity competition and just kind of voiced some of the concerns as well as our commitment as a committee. I hope this is a reflection of what we think. Our commitment as a committee to help to the extent possible and lend expertise and lend experience and lend, what our process, right? And, hopefully insert that a little bit into what they're doing. It sounds like Caitlin, you are going to be involved in that process, and so we do have
Yes. So as an
connection
update,
there.
That's good.
the last meeting, I was asked to be a reviewer on the committee.
Good.
So I will be reviewing the some applications, not all.
But we'll have that as, we'll have your participation as sort of a view into what's going on a little bit. I'm sure you can't tell us everything, but just sort of the overarching process of how that's working. So I'll be curious to hear from that.
So they seemed to acknowledge that it was a bit of a blind spot, that one organization could submit duplicative proposals to both pools.
Yeah, I voiced that certainly as a concern.
Yeah,
That's one of the biggest concerns, which is we don't want that duplication, and it didn't sound like there was any sort of
They hadn't really
thought to that yet, so.
So then that is effectively your involvement there going to be a stopgap against that.
Yeah, I'm definitely hoping to bring that perspective, but also my expertise in reviewing grant applications. No, I'm kidding. But no, it'll
You have it.
I think it'll be good to help us understand, what organizations are applying, what ones are recommended for funding, and just get a better feel for their process, and maybe there's something that they're doing that we could implement here too. So
Sure.
That'll be.
Corey, do they have a website in the county for this thing like we do for, because I'm still surprised that I never heard anything until we had that day. I would have liked to apply and be
A reviewer.
a reviewer, just because I would have.
Yeah,
That's a great question.
it was,
So if you can find like a website or something you can send us, I would
Yeah.
appreciate that.
yeah, I'm wondering, because like we didn't know about what
I
they
was
were
told
doing,
that
but like, did,
I get everything from the county.
it also didn't kind of occur to them to come to us as potential reviewers. I don't imagine there's any sort of
Conflict of
conflict of
interest.
interest. But at that same point, and I brought this up with Maureen, also like the reviewers, in terms of our recruiting for new members of the committee, those reviewers, might they be interested, once they kind of get that under their belt, to
Well,
join us and
rain on
continue?
your parade, I think the big problem is that those reviewers are getting paid. When they found out that they're getting paid here, I'm sorry to be the devil's advocate, I doubted they'll join us.
Yeah, why are they doing that? Why are they paying?
No.
I mean, I think it's a different structure. The review committee is a different structure than a advisory board. We've asked that question in the past, if there's a way to compensate advisory board members, and it's been county policy for many years to not do that.
What is the actual structure? What is it called?
It's just a review committee. I mean, I don't know, maybe it's county manager appointed, I'm not actually sure.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
that's the
because the thing
difference.
is that advisory boards are appointed by the county board. There's a whole level of, there's a structure in the state code, there's requirements. So I mean, I think probably the reason that we're not able to compensate is because of that, but I actually don't know the
I mean,
Jennifer is getting on camera, maybe she knows.
Yeah, so we actually, after the meeting last week, did ask that question and haven't gotten a response. So that reminds me to follow up.
I mean,
Why is it we can pay some groups and not others? So hopefully we'll have an answer for you.
I mean, I'm not asking the question such that all of a sudden we can start getting paid.
No, right, I agree with you.
It's a privilege to be able to spend time with the group here. But I was just curious why they decided to pay that group, and it just doesn't, it doesn't
to me,
seem.
there was quite a recruitment for it, that why aren't they, if they put in such a recruitment for it, why aren't they putting that recruitment to all the commissions? Because we have problems with all, I mean, I belong to another commission and we're out there constantly asking people to join us, and it's hard.
I'm still confused that when they thought of this program, did they not know we existed, or do they not trust what we do? There would be a big
They
difference.
know we.
So do they not trust, or they just want more flexibility to do what they want to do at the end of the day?
Successful.
I think it's the latter. I don't, it's, you all are very respected by the county board and county leadership, so I don't think that you're not, but I think we talked about this last time, like there's definitely a perception of our process having more barriers than some of the organizations like or feel like they I don't know, are able to manage. So I think it was sort of it's a response to that, to try to be a little bit more open to newer organizations or organizations that maybe aren't as well established in a way that we're not really able to do.
And honestly, it's a big leap from you gotta remember where they were to where they're at now. It's a big leap to go from where they were, where it just seemed like they were giving out money, to our pretty rigorous structure. And that's a big shift. That would have been a.
Well, the county feels.
I also heard though that they were really, it was a really mindful effort to try and get reviewers that were persons who had those life experiences. So I think they wanted reviewers that were potentially looked and were bringing to the table different things than this group is. And as a result, because of that, they felt like they might have to, because you might be dealing with folks who are much lower income, quite frankly, than anybody here at this table, and therefore there was a monetary incentive.
I'm sure that's a piece of it. I think there are two other points, just somebody who was observing this from the outside. Number one, they paid a consultant to come in here, and I know a consultant could have turned around and said, my recommendation is to do basically what you guys are already doing. They had to come up with something.
Yeah, he didn't earn his paycheck.
Number two, the people who were very influential in shaping this process are people who have not been successful in this proposal process previously. I'm sure that has something to do with it too. Maybe other people can't say that, I will. But I went to a few of those listening sessions, and the people that were up there were people that we have had issues with their programs and their proposals.
And I also think in terms of the payment of the reviewers, like, maybe this is naive, but like, in my experience, whatever monetary amount that they're getting is not enough unless they are also committed to this cause and wanting to improve the community, like whatever they're getting paid is not enough to.
I agree with you, but I'm disagreeing in the whole, it's not about X amount of money, it's the fact that it was offered.
Right.
As an incentive. I don't care if it's $1 or 5 cents.
The difference, I think, is that we are a committee an advisory committee that happens to review proposals versus what their sole purpose.
And this is also just a one-shot deal.
Right.
That you're just a reviewer for this round, this time, and it's over a course of, I don't know, what is it, like a month or so? I mean, it's a moment in time, 1 year.
But I'm
so it's a very different
that, like, maybe there's 1 or 2 folks that are doing that might have interest in
no.
joining up.
That's great.
That's all we would want. So, Caitlin, can you remind us what is the timing of all of this? When does that review happen? It's before.
It's ongoing.
Okay.
I think they're trying to have recommendations by March. So it's a pretty quick turn.
So whatever happens with that happens well before any of the applications come in for.
Well, I think it's 2025 funds. So it's the programs that will be released in the county manager's budget at the end of this.
Oh, so they're essentially after us.
I think so, because I need to get clarity on that because it's a little bit confusing to me. But I think that they were either allocated the funding in 2024 and they're making their recommendations before the end of the fiscal year. I just don't understand how then it's carried over to the next year. So that's why I'll get some clarity on that.
I'm just curious as to, like, if something gets funded that we would have, it's almost like maybe that's fine, that we don't get to consider them for funding, but
well, and I mean,
getting funded, maybe that's what matters.
And keep in mind that a lot of times the reasons that a program isn't funded under one of our funding sources is maybe it's related to their capacity to be able to, comply with the rigorous reporting standards, or
Right.
the program, the program isn't quite eligible under any of the programs. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's, yeah. So there's other reasons, I mean, just not necessarily always based on sort of merit or quality, that programs we have to pass on them.
I'll be interested to see what effect this has on what comes through under this fund next year,
Yeah.
if any.
Yeah.
And all the information, what they're gonna be granted will be posted on
Yes. Yeah, it'll be posted.
the county board, the website.
And I'll share it with you guys when it's posted.
How many do they think they're gonna do? Yeah, that's really interesting.
Did
I
she say like 40?
Did they tell us what the pot of money is again? I can't remember.
Total amount. I can't remember what they said.
I can't remember either, so.
But to be clear, I think it's great that they're doing that. I would imagine that everybody here feels the same way. It's just, I would wish that they hadn't reinvented the wheel in doing that process. Because it's certainly something that was overdue to be done. And it's great how they're trying to do it. It just would have been nice if they hadn't reinvented a process and then made us call into question some of ours.
Well, it seems like they just took the wheel and just put a different label on it.
Open communication so that others can understand being helpful.
So how did hearing from them last month come about? Did you invite them to present?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Thank you. We'll see, it's the first year. Let's see what they do.
Totally.
What kind of changes they make next year. And I wouldn't be
Well,
surprised
and
if.
it'll be interesting, I think, in whatever they share with us, not only what gets posted in terms of presumably what's awarded, but I'd be equally as curious as to who applied. Or I'd almost be more curious as to who applied that may not have gotten awarded, just to see if it's the same folks or if that part of their intent is to, bring in new, different faces or whatever. So.
New blood.
And that note is available, right? Or it's already been out and.
The responses were due.
Yeah, I think it's already passed.
I'll take a look, and I'm interested to see what the application looks like for them compared with ours.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for the update.
Okay, so quick staff report. Actually, two of them were covered in Laura's chair report. Just
Sorry, I
that.
stole your thunder.
Yeah, you did. No, just that I was asked to be a reviewer, so I'll be participating in that process. I think it'll be helpful for us. I also wanted to mention that we've got our bus tour coming up on April 3rd. So that's a Wednesday, it's April meeting. It'll be from 6 to 8, so just keep that on your calendars. We're planning it right now. And hopefully we'll have some interesting stops for you all to participate in. It's the 50th anniversary of CDBG, so we're trying to fit in a bunch of fun stuff. So,
Will there be snacks as well?
we are working on it.
I just, 6 to 9, it's right in that prime time. Just wondering.
I know. It's
Great ideas.
Yeah.
so. I think that's it though. Are there any?
I would just encourage you that the Housing Commission talked about tours at our last meeting. And I said, and they were like, oh yeah, long ago we used to do those things. But it's really hard to pull off. And I said, CDCAC does it every year, so to talk to you. So
I have chatted with Alex about that already.
Okay,
so yes,
good,
I
good.
gave him all of my knowledge.
Okay.
I'll add one thing. So in my capacity here, I'm representing homeless populations. I will share that, and I don't know if other people are seeing this, but we're approaching a real crisis right now with elder care in the homeless population. Path Forward specifically, hospital and the county. This is a constant source of challenge, constantly communicating and working on this, but as it relates to the aging population that is experiencing homelessness, it's becoming a real problem. And I think that just in the next couple of cycles, I would imagine that we're going to probably see more proposals, more programs that are related to this. And I think the county has some programs. I think they're actually going to even change the contract that Path Forward has, as New Hope and Path Forward have with the county to manage the homeless services centers. I think they're going to change those contracts and add in scope around combating elder care in homelessness.
And today or yesterday, they announced federal money, and some of it was going to.
That was different. That was transition. That's actually very old news.
Okay.
But that was a transition housing grant that Path Forward put in through the county, and it was like a 1.2 million, I think, a year. But yeah, we've actually already been executing against that.
Okay.
But that was a transitionary housing grant from HUD. That was a huge help. But this is something different. And like we have 4 hospice beds over at Path Forward, and we've had an 85-year-old homeless couple that are fall risks that they got discharged from the hospital, had nowhere to go, and we had to deal with them. And this is all on the heels of the issue that the jail had about 10 months ago, I want to say it was, where that woman who was experiencing a mental health crisis, who was elderly, was picked up at Reagan Airport, taken there, and then she passed away. So it's a real problem, and just putting that on people's radar. I think you're going to see a lot more about that particular issue in the next couple of months and years.
Gross numbers impressively increasing.
Yeah, sorry, Jennifer. My apologies.
I was just going to chime in that, yes, I mean, everybody is seeing that, as the population is aging, homeless seniors are becoming more and more of an issue. So Rachel Coates over in DHS, who runs our aging and disability, has been pulling together sort of a working group of county folks and also some of the nonprofits to kind of think through. And our interest is really on the housing side and helping develop supply, because there's not a ton of sort of senior specific housing in the county. There's some. There's Culpeper Gardens, there's other ones, but really looking at ways to sort of increase that, because this is going to continue to increase. And it's, it's about the services, but it's also about the supply and where people are going to live. So that's something that we're, pretty focused on. And then I also wanted to share while we're doing updates, speaking of NOFAs, we actually have out a call for letters of intent. For developers, we do have some federal funds. We have CDBG and HOME that we need to spend that we can't use on grants. So we're really looking for, again, sort of small housing projects. So Caitlin, among her millions of other things, has been working with a lot of smaller developers who are looking at coming in to potentially use CDBG or HOME Fund. So we might be coming back to you hopefully in the next few months with some cool projects. So just want to give those 2 updates.
Especially if they're on that issue. Great.
We can wrap up.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.